Diane, Jean and Richard to come and share their tributes to their father.
Those words from 2 Corinthians that Ruth read are words that John, Dad, passionately believed in and lived by. His eyes were fixed on what is unseen. Not on what is unseen, but on what is eternal. He was a warrior for Jesus. Dad was born in 1929. The 4th of 5 children of Martin and Nellie Wheatley. He was quite a character with determination even as a young boy. His older sister Audrey told of having to escort him to school when he was 5, and Dad not being in any hurry to get there, stopping to climb trees along the way. But her greatest embarrassment was of Dad refusing to kneel at prayers during school assembly when everyone else was kneeling. How things have changed. I don't think he was ever fond of kneeling, though. He was only 10 when World War II broke out, and it had a significant effect on his teenage years. He spoke of spending nights in the Morrison shelter with 2 of his siblings in their home, while his older brother Jeff and his sister Audrey were away from home, serving in the war. Dad became a Christian in 1942 at the age of 13 through Crusaders, which had a huge impact on the early years of his Christian life, and his commitment to serve God grew from that time. He was bright at school, top of the class at the age of 11, with a fascination for technology. After secondary school, he went to Kingston Technical College for 2 years, doing radio engineering. Dad loved adventure and went off to work for Cable and Wireless at the age of 18 in 1947, initially in Singapore, where he made some lifelong friends and had many adventures on his motorbike, and there he developed a love for sailing. He was transferred for a year to the Cocos Islands, with little else to do after work but swim, sail, and learn new skills in photography and the developing of photos, which came in very useful in the Seychelles. In 1950, at the age of 21, Dad was transferred to Kuwait, where he met our mother Alice, who had fairly recently arrived from the US as a young single missionary to teach. Her time with that mission was rather curtailed through their meeting, but God had other plans for the 2 of them together, and after marrying in 1952, here in the UK, they moved to the States to explore further opportunities for mission together, combining their gifts, and they joined FEBC. Dad's life changed again in 1953 when he became a father, and Richard was born, followed by Jean a following year in 1955. They relocated shortly after Jean's birth to the Philippines, where he used his skills initially as a radio engineer and then into programming, and Mum used her language skills in making radio programs, briefly interrupted by my birth in 1956. You've heard from Joanna Moulton about the birth and development of Feba, which started in 1959, and how in 1968 we moved as a family to the Seychelles to enable Dad to help with the setting up of the radio station there. This was driven by Dad's passion for sharing the good news of Jesus around the world, and his vision for radio as being an amazing God-given medium for reaching so many more people, some of whom live in inaccessible places throughout the world. Dad's passion for what he believed in, his persevering spirit and huge sense of commitment to God and to God's work, along with his attention to detail, his love for adventure and sense of humour, were all invaluable in those early days of Feba Seychelles, with the many challenges of lack of supplies and poor communication networks. I still remember the weekly ritual of waiting for the amphibian plane to arrive with the post, and the many all-nighters that were spent answering the urgent letters in order to catch the 6 a.m. flight out the following day. This was before the airport opened 3 years later. Over this time, Dad developed an amazing gift of preaching and teaching as well, becoming a lay reader in the Church of England, initially in the Seychelles, and also on his return to the UK. In the midst of this, there was time for adventures as a family, swimming, snorkeling, sailing, and capsizing, and taking advantage of the need to travel by making time for touristy visits in many different countries. In 1978, Dad and Mum relocated to the UK, and Dad served as General Director based first of all in Addleston and then in Worthing, but doing a lot of travelling around the world in that role. His preaching and teaching gift was hugely appreciated and remembered in his local church, both in Knapp Hill and then in Worthing, especially his cracking series on Nehemiah. In 2002, our mother Alice died, which was an enormous loss to Dad as his life partner and partner in ministry. He was blessed after that to reconnect with Donna and her family nearly 40 years after their initial family friendship in the Philippines, and they married in 2005. Donna was a wonderful companion and encourager for Dad in his later years. During this later time, he served as consultant for FEBC, continuing in his travels until 2010, when he finally retired at the age of 80. Since then, his passion for mission and pursuing the kingdom of God has continued through his connection both with FEBC and Feba, serving his local church in preaching and inspiring the missionary committee and in prayer. His increasing frailty and failing eyesight haven't deterred him from soldiering on, keeping his eyes on Jesus, his hope. Thank you, Dad, for being such an example through your life and devotion, your love, your adventurous spirit, and the fun and laughter we shared.
Dad's wife, Donna, is unable to be with us today, but she's watching from Fimbra Court, a wonderful Christian care home where they looked after Dad until he passed away and are currently looking after Donna. But unfortunately, due to the coronavirus regulations, she's not able to join us, but I can visit her weekly, and so I would like to say a few things on her behalf. Donna says, "I sure do miss him, but we know where he's gone, and we will see him again. He was a great guy, and so easy to live with." I was privileged to be with Donna when we said our last goodbyes to Dad. She burst into spontaneous prayer, thanking God for Dad and his life of faithful service, and thanking the Lord for Jesus and his death on the cross that has made it possible for us to be with him in eternity when we die. We sang to him together, "What a friend we have in Jesus." A few lines from that hymn. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Are we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with a load of care? Precious Saviour, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. And as we sang together over Dad, I really felt that privilege of sharing that time with her. So I wanted to talk to you about Dad and about his adventurous spirit. Diane's talked a little bit about it. Others have hinted at it too. He loved to do physical, active things, which included climbing the radio mast if there was anything wrong. He'd be out there on the pontoon in the Seychelles, supervising or at least overseeing the pouring of concrete into the sea. And I learned later that it was a chemical reaction which caused it to set. Nothing to do with drying. We've also heard about the amazing work of setting up a station in the Seychelles. The kinds of things that Dad had to overcome together with the team there were done through prayer and through continued focus on the work and belief that it was God's work. And we saw many miracles. In my time with him in the Seychelles, we regularly got into scrapes. Capsizing when we were sailing, or going aground on a reef, or other kind of mishaps. Dad always sorted them out, some way or other. Sometimes with a little help. Rescues and things like that. We also, we also used to go snorkeling. Dad had a spear gun. And occasionally he would bring home supper. Or he would encounter a shark. He readily enjoyed family games. I can remember particularly the game of life, which he introduced to many people in the Philippines amongst great hilarity when we introduced the aspect of gambling, which was very much not allowed, because it was a fun part of the game and it wasn't real gambling. We just had such fun, and it was absolutely hilarious watching my father enjoying that. When our mother died in 2002, it was a shock to us all, and we were ill prepared for it. Dad was completely undomesticated, but he gamely learnt the new skills of simple cooking, managing the laundry, doing the shopping, not cleaning. As Joanna Moulton said in her tribute, nothing fazed him. Diane and I did have regular phone calls from him inquiring how to make something or how to operate something like the oven, but he just got on with it. Dan Andrew mentioned about new technology that he was always learning. I remember well in his office in Worthing being taken up, where he had, I think it was the first home computer in our family, and looking down at this thing, which was an inbuilt screen in a desk, and he showed us how it worked and how you could send and receive emails. What were they? He was the first in our family. Richard is a computer buff, but Dad was the first in our family to have these things at home. Satellite dishes pointed in different directions from the home so that he could monitor what was going on through the radio waves. And he would learn and keep an eye out for other opportunities. I give thanks for our Father and all that he taught me, not least for his love and commitment to his Saviour, Jesus Christ, for his faith and example of devotion and passion for serving his Lord. It's hard to live up to that, but it's one that I hold close to my heart. My thoughts of him now are of him being welcomed with loud hallelujahs and words of well done, thou good and faithful servant.
It's very hard to be the last to speak, partly because a lot of things have already been said. And it would be repetitious if I just said all of those things that I feel as strongly as Jean and Diane do. And the things that Joanna and Dan Curo, Ed Cannon and Bob have said about Dad, about the work of Feba, about all that he has been involved with during his life, his adventurous spirit, his vision for solving problems, his passion for God, all of those things I agree wholeheartedly with. Dad enjoyed life, and even in his latter days when things were getting quite difficult and he was physically quite frail, we still enjoyed a laugh together. He loved his family, had an amazing sense of humor, quite a wicked sense of humor at times, I think, but most of all, he was a godly man. When it came to Feba, he was truly inspired, I think. And I look at the things that I know of what he did, and then all of the things that I've heard from other people. You know, one of the things about people is that however well we think we know them, we find out a lot more after they go. And people speak about how clever they were, or how inspired they were, or all of those things that have been said about Dad. I well remember the father of a friend of mine in Africa who, after he passed, the funeral went on for hours. The funeral service went on for hours because so many people had so much to say, and it was all positive. And I went away thinking, gosh, wish I'd got to know this guy much sooner. And I feel a bit like that about Dad, that I wish I'd known him better, because there was so much to him. That's not possible. Actually, it's not really possible for any of us. I've received a number of emails, too many to read out, but all spoke of two particular things. One was his energy, his drive, his ability to keep going. The second was his vision for solving problems, his ability to see, as Joanna put it, to see beyond the immediate and to narrow things down into ways that he could find solutions for. He was passionate for God. And we are here because of his passion for God as well. So, of all the things that Dad was to us and to everybody else and all the people who knew him, and many who actually didn't know him but heard a lot about him, he was a man of vision and character and adventure and all of those things that we've heard. But to us, he was simply Dad. We miss him. We mourn his loss. But we are grateful for the reception that we know he's had in heaven. Thank you.